So chapter 33, continuing on the Simcha, and this chapter is really the Simcha of Krivas Hashem. So if you take pleasure and you take joy in Krivas Hashem and being close to God, so then that will bring you Simcha all the time. And if you don't take Simcha in being close to Hashem, so therefore it's not really going to work. Again, based on all the work we've done so far, that hopefully we'll be able to. See, this will be the Simcha of the Nefesh Amitit, because there are other types of Simcha of the Nefesh that are not Amitit, like ice cream. So when you see in your nefesh that in specific times when you need to reach that simcha in your heart, you will be yamik machshavto, the yutzer besichlo, and you'll understand the yichud of Yisbarach Amiti. So since the whole world, the whole existence is all Hashem, and therefore that by Hashem, hu levado bli shom shinoi klal. So some of the ideas brought out in the second book of the Tanya, Shar Yichud V'Amuna, the way that God is everywhere. So before God created the world, there was only God and God was everywhere. And then when he created the world, so therefore there was a perception that he's not everywhere, but really he is everywhere. So everywhere, every essence, every point of existence is just full of God. It's just covered over. Now, again, if you're looking for Krivas Hashem, if you're a spiritual person, so then this will make you so happy when you focus on the idea of that God is constantly with you everywhere. So that the whole world is bittul against God, and he's the Or Ein Sof, so therefore he's everywhere. And it's only from our perception that God is not here. So we don't need to get close to God. God is close to us. We just need to realize that we are close to him, that he is everywhere, and we are with Mamash Krivas right here, right now, with God. And that's great simcha if you want that spirituality. So in the Shema it says, you will love God after b'chol lavacha v'chol nafshecha. So what's the difference between b'chol lavacha v'chol nafshecha? And in English, it really doesn't make any sense. All your heart and all your soul. Like, what's the difference? But b'chol lavcha is going after the nefesh behema, and the nefesh behema is everything that I want. So I can have this love of God based on what I have. So I like ice cream, and God gives me ice cream, and I like my life, and all these things that God give me. Therefore, I love God because He's the source of all this. But I will not give my soul for Him. I will not die for God, because the whole nefesh behema is all about staying alive. So that's a completely different love. Is b'chol nafshecha. B'chol nafshecha is the love of the nefesh elokis. When you're in touch with the nefesh elokis, so then for sure you'll give your life, because your life is not as important as God, because you're completely bottled to Him. So if your essence is your nefesh elokis, and that's all you want, and you love God in that way, so therefore all you want is God, and therefore you'll have that desire to be close to God. And once you have this ye'amek zeh bezeh harbe, that God is everywhere and God is here right now, and again, the distance from God is only one way, that He's not distant from us. We just have a perception of distance, and therefore if we change our perception, so therefore we are right in with the bosom of God. So when you amik the harbe, then you'll have great level of simcha of all time. So Eino Milvado, and then the taking on the ideas of Eino Milvado will bring levels of great simcha, again, if you're on the level of B'chol Nafshecha, which you should be able to get to if you followed the previous 32 chapters up to this point. So you be simcha in He Krivas Elohim Mamish, when you take on and you live by Eino Milvado. And that's the whole point of creation. And the creation of the whole world, above and below, is that God will have a dira b'tachtonim, as we're going to explain in later chapters. So the dira b'tachtonim, the ikr, is, while it's also through mitzvahs, the ikr is in the man himself. And therefore, when the man is living with Eino Milvado at all points in time, therefore there's a dira b'tachtonim for God. And that's the whole point of creation. So you are the point of creation when you take this on. And that's another level of simcha. And even marshal of how happy you would be, a lowly person, if he was onto the Melech Basar V'Dam. And here you are so close to God, where again you're closer to God than it's possible to be to a Melech Basar V'Dam. So now there's even a greater level of simcha, because Ashrenu Ma Chelkenu, and Yerusha Senu, that there's a Yerusha specifically by the Jews that no one else can have. Everyone can have a bina of this idea, the idea of Eino Milvado, people can have in bina, but the idea of das, that you actually live it and live it amiti, only a Jew is able to live with that level of godliness. And therefore, this is a Yerusha, and when you understand this, then you will have a higher level of simcha in this, knowing that this is a gift given to you. It's, again, in the mashal, where you just wake up one morning, someone you didn't even know it was rich, left you lots of money, and you have all this thing that you didn't earn, and you have tremendous wealth. So this is all the more so that you have this ability to understand and have das, and to live a life of Eino Movado that non-Jews are not able to live. And that Eino Movado is you living with God, and at all points in time it's just you and God in the whole of the universe just bound up together, and that's great levels of simcha. And then we have a level of simcha kafula umukufelet. So the kafula is in the two levels of I'm happy because I'm carved to Hashem. I'm happy that I'm the tachlis of all the bria. But then the doubling up is that I can be happy in God's happiness because I am living in this level of Eino Movado, in this world of klipa, and therefore I'm creating the dir of betachtonim. So therefore that gives God a happiness. And then if you are close to somebody, then you take happiness in their happiness. So again, another definition of spirituality. I'm a spiritual person. Why? Because I'm happy with when God is happy. So getting the levels of the iskafia, the sitra achara. So therefore, when you have the cheshech in the lam and the klipus, and then you reveal that and you find God in all of that, and therefore you'll have an even higher level in chus la'aretz, because the chus la'aretz is so tameh and so cheshech, and therefore you're able to live this level of Eino Movado and chus la'aretz. So therefore you have an even higher level of simcha by Hashem, which you can then take simcha in that, because chus la'aretz is so metameh, and therefore to find the light in that darkness is in a higher level of simcha. So 34, after saying that to get such great levels of simcha with this living with God in the Eino Movado, then it comes to say that really it's not for everybody, this level. So the avos, they started off with being the marchava. So this is that didn't separate from them one moment from their kisher das, being completely connected, and the neshama to the ribun ha'olam, and they had this bittul, as we've explained above. So they were living this constantly, this idea of Eino Movado, when every moment of their life was bound up with Hashem. And then after came the Nevi'im all the way to Moshe, where the Shekhinah was talking through his neck. So Moshe was going to completely bottle to Hashem to that level. And then came the Hashra Shekhinah on all of Yisrael at Mamad Har Sinai. But the Jews were not able to be soivel this. And this is what we're up with today, where only some people are able to get to this level, and that the Jews at Har Sinai had that revelation. That on the Dibor, called Dibor Parcha Nishmatam, because that bittul mitzias, that happened to the Jews, and they weren't able to hold on to themselves, and therefore they lost their yeshus, they lost their individual identity, and became a battle completely to Hashem with that level of revelation at Sinai. So afterwards, therefore, that's why we were told to build the Mishkan, and there we have the Kodesh Kedoshim inside the Mishkan, because that point is then to have the Hashor Shechina, because to have it on the Jews, it was too much. That's the level of the Giloi of Hashem, as we've explained up to this point. So that since the Jews weren't able to live in that manner of having that level of Giloi Hashem and Hashar Shechina like the Avos were, so that all came in Har Sinai for every Jew, and they weren't able to do it, so went into the Kodesh Kedoshim, and then at the time of Mashiach, so then they will be able to makabel that level of Hashar Shechina and revelation of God. But once the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, so therefore there's no Kodesh Kedoshim. So then Kodesh Baruch Hu, he moved to the Arba Amos Shel Halacha. Halacha being the Keter and the Rotzon of Hashem, as opposed to the mitzvahs which are coming under it into Etzilus. So Keter is even a higher level. So therefore man is then able, because the Kodesh Kedoshim has moved into the Torah, so therefore man is able to build a Kodesh Kedoshim in his machshava. And therefore, no matter how small the person is, and that he's able to build a Mishkan and have a Yichud be'emes amitoi, even though that a machshava can't grab God, and therefore for sure my machshava can't grab him. Yes, yet when I learn Torah, therefore I'm building a Kodesh Kedoshim for him, and I get the Hashar Shechina Mamish, as we've explained before, and be able to bring down this Eino Movado into my machshava by learning Torah. And this will be a source of great simcha and joy. And then you give hoidah on your place in great simcha, because then you're making a ushpizin, you're making a place of where God is coming down to dwell, and how happy you would be if the king came to dwell in your house. And the more so, Kadosh Baruch Hu is coming and say, not that I'm dwelling in your house, I'm dwelling in you. And that's a level of great simcha. Then if you're able to learn more, and then you machshava taiva, that I want to learn more, then you even get the mitzvah of that. So it's a lower level than actually learning, but you thinking about learning. I wish I was in while you're working. You wish you were learning. So there you have the Shekhinah in that aspect as well, because even though you're not learning itself, you're not building the base of Mikdash. That your machshava is you wish you were building it, and that is considered as the Maisa, as if you built it. And even though the day you're working. And so what's the point of the work? The work is it's not learning Torah, it's not the mitzvah. But then you can bring the tzedakah in which you give is coming from all the effort you're putting in, and therefore that will turn into it's like God's right hand. But even with all that, you're only giving the 20%. So that's just the chaimish. So what about the rest of the 80% of your work? That the chaimish is able to bring up the kedusha of everything around, and therefore everything you're doing. That since you're working in order to do chesed, therefore everything you're doing is brought up, and you're building this mishkan in everything you're doing. And therefore you'll have this great level of simcha, and all these levels and all the part of simcha, which we have above. So this is really the end of the process of where we got to in building the simcha. And with all this and being this level of happiness of which you're building the base of Mikdash, and that God is coming to dwell with you, and everything you're doing is this level of Hashar Shekhinah and being one with God. So even with all that simcha, that you don't bring out that you don't leave out that the nefesh behema is disgusting, and you still have the leiv nishbar and the ruach and the low ruach. So you have the nefesh elokis, which is bringing you great simcha, and then you have the nefesh behema, which is giving you great disgust. Now the point here isn't that you should have some type of medium level of joy, but that you have total joy with the nefesh elokis, and then disgust of the nefesh behema. And then only with the two together will that actually bring, because the source of the joy is coming from the breaking of the nefesh behema, as we've explained before. Now the simcha of the nefesh behema is never going to be satiated, and anything in which you get on the yesh level, on the nefesh behema level, then that's never going to satiate. And when you move to a nicer apartment, so then 3 months later you get used to it, and now you're not, that extra happiness you get by going to the nicer place, you don't have that joy anymore. Now you're always looking for more. When you get a raise or more money, or you win money, then there's a period of time straight afterwards where you're happy, but then once you get used to it, so therefore that happiness goes away, and now you've just integrated that in, and now you want more. And that's really the key to the nefesh behema, that is never satiated, is never happy, and any happiness in which it has is just like a dopamine hit, and you're always looking for more. So when you see the people always looking for more, and they're never going to be satiated in what they have, then that's them tapping into the nefesh behema, and know that's never going to bring the happiness. And when you see that and understand that, and then if you can be disgusted by it, then that disgust, the breaking of it, will bring out that you can now take your prince, your nefesh elokis, and take the prince out of the poop, take him into the palace, bring him back to his father with this teshuvah, have him back doing mitzvahs, and then that simcha will be on a high level. But since the nefesh elokis just wants a bittul to Hashem, then have the mitzvah, he has the bittul, and there he is actually happy with that, and that's the real path to simcha. But that's without letting go of the mevaza of the nefesh behema, and therefore you're holding both things together, the simcha of the nefesh elokis and the mevaza of the nefesh behema.